Hi, I'm Robin. This is Stanislav Jerhov
Hey,
and Zhenya Khnatyuk.
yeah, hi.
Okay. Engineers have hosted at my apartment for a while. They're working and volunteering in the city. Say hi.
Hi. hi.
Talk fast, eat ass. We're just kind of giving like a brief overview of kind of like what's been going on like the past couple of weeks and just kind of how things have changed, I guess, from like the beginning of the war and then also, I guess, from 2014.
Mhm.
Zhenya is from Kyiv, right? And
Yeah.
you're originally from Donetsk.
Yeah, I'm originally from Donetsk, but I have moved to Kiev in 2014
Mhm.
when the war starts. So, and now I moved to Lviv. It's my,
Third home.
I don't know, so-called second exile.
Yeah, fleeing from two different cities at two different times for very similar reasons, ironically.
Yeah, identical.
Yeah. So what have you guys been working on, I guess, thus far in Lviv?
Mhm. In Lviv, we trying to help with with some military equipment like vests, some pouches, first aid kits, some add-ons for guns,
Like
sights,
rifle attachments and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, sights, handles, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Radios, like communications, both finding, buying, setting up, sending in Ukraine, and helping my friends with some engineering stuff, thermal cameras, drones, all that kind of stuff that makes more good Russian people. Good Russian soldiers are bad Russian
Makes them
soldiers.
makes them good.
Yeah, makes
Nice and good.
So in general, our initiative is focused on how to make our defenders more effective.
Mhm.
So our so-called credo or our reason why we do this, because we believe that the best way to prevent some humanitarian crisis is to help our defenders to fight more efficient against Russian army, who is a reason of this humanitarian crisis.
So like this war is, I would also say, like very different in the sense that it's like very, very transparent, not only in how egregious like one side is doing everything, and it's very clear that like Russia is the aggressor in many ways, but also it's very different in that so much of the warfare is now on like cyber warfare, is on misinformation, is about trying to change the narrative, to shift like the geopolitical opinion of whether or not it's worth helping Ukraine, or whether or not influencing whether or not China or India are going to try to subvert sanctions and stuff.
Mhm. Well, the type of like of understanding who is responsible for all that depends on how close you live to the area that it actually happens. So from 2014, like most adequate and smart people understood just right like that it's Russia, and all the facts said that it was Russia.
For
At that
example,
time,
so for example, for people who aren't like familiar with what was
yeah,
kind
so
of like in
that
Donbass
time
and
in
Crimea.
Crimea and Donbass, Russian forces didn't use patches or anything that can say
Identify them.
that, yeah, identify as Russian soldiers. They sent the military equipment, guns, tanks, all that stuff, and some of training personnel to train local assholes how to use that, basically. And during those 8 years, there were people, both civilian and in politics, that were pro-Russian. Not a big amount, not very significant, but they were.
And when you say pro-Russian, you mean like they wanted Ukraine to be more closely economically and politically aligned with like Russian interests, as opposed to like the EU or
Yeah,
to the West.
yeah, and but they were like voting and doing reforms that are not that efficient for and not that good for Ukraine. That's we're slowing down economical reforms and so on, because it was a requirement from European Union from us to make those reforms to join EU or just any economical agreements. Yeah. And after 24th of February, everything became clear. So those pro-Russian politics fled country almost like in 2-3 days, maybe even before that all started, and they're let's say not welcome back. Yeah, so they most probably they will be treated as like treason, like country treason, like all that kind of stuff. But interesting thing is that when like the conflict was in Donbass and Crimea region, in Ukraine, where like both for and against Russia, more against, of course, but now Ukraine is completely against Russia. But some foreign people still have this thing about maybe Russia is like maybe it's Ukrainians who bad and so on. And this is partly a result of Russian foreign informational policy. It still became much more obvious for all the world, but still some people may not be as sure about that. And all Ukrainian people work for that. So it's like the whole country is united to fight back. And there's more some like with guns they serve or they join territorial defense. It's like in several months before like all shits hit the fan, they created a special like thing when if you're not military you still can join. You'll be trained for response during war. Somewhere there.
No, territorial defense forces starts to.
They started building up.
Was started maybe a year ago, but it was not so.
Not very popular.
So public, so popular. But territorial defense force are a part of Ukrainian army force.
Official military.
So it's not a paramilitary organization. It's a part of official army.
Actually, they joined official military not that far ago.
Yeah, it was one of these past months.
A month before the war started, our president signed an order that allows to use territory defense force in how to say it in the same manner as regular army force.
What would you say is like what's like kind of the difference, I guess, in like joining the army versus joining the territorial defense?
You cannot join the army just like that. So in territorial defense before war they trained for defending their region, like their part of city or their city or
the village
like that. And so they were instructed how to do that, and in the beginning those who did that knew what they're doing. But for like usual military you need to serve. Like after that you become
it's like a contract of like several years, like joining
we still have
reserves, National Guard.
No, we still have every single man has
required
to serve.
service.
So we still didn't cancel that, and maybe that's for good now. We were transferring to only contract army. But maybe future will show. And when you finish serving or in universities you need to pass military training as officer, like lieutenant or something like that.
Probably something
so like lowest officer rank, and after that you become military of reserve. And when war started they summoned all these people in different waves. First those who had combat experience, then those who served not earlier than I remember they're 8 years or around that, and then
progressively
everybody
further
else.
back,
Yeah. So now they're, I think, in wave 2, starting wave 3, something like that. So it's like not everyone who, according to law, can defend our country is still summoned.
So how would you guys say like the pace of like the needs of Ukraine have changed, I guess, over the course of like, so we're now in week 3 or week 4?
Week 4.
Week 4.
Yeah. So now that we're in week 4, I remember like the first 2 weeks, it was like immediately just like everybody was mobilizing as fast as they can. And everybody who's fleeing is fleeing as fast as they can. The fact that Ukraine like got past that for those first 2 weeks, everybody was surprised about that. Like the U.S. was only supplying the correct amount of like arms to survive like that first week, and nobody was expecting Ukraine to get past that. But now that we have like moved past that and are now in what I essentially kind of look at as like a long phase of the war, how would you say that like the needs have kind of changed, supply side or humanitarian need side?
There are what separates civilian and military dynamics. So with civilian, I think they started massively fleeing country on day 3, 4, something like that. And in
I think now we're at like 2.5 million-ish people have
3.5.
3.5 have left the country. 7 million have been displaced within the country.
Yeah, so within first week, I think like March 3rd, something like that, the EU countries started their official programs of receiving refugees.
Yep.
Actually, they're not formal refugees. They are people who they must protect. It's a different jurisdiction.
And they don't need to officially file as a refugee.
Yeah,
for like
the refugees
the
are
year or
limited in their rights, and they should file for being refugee, cannot move in EU and all that stuff. And they don't use that system for Ukrainian people.
Yeah.
So they have a separate.
It's essentially like a grace period, like a sanctuary grace period.
Yeah, it's like Ukrainian people can pass with even civil passport, like citizenship, passport of citizenship of Ukraine, and then go to Ukrainian representatives in these countries' embassies for foreign passport. We have 2 kind of passports, and then they have right to live, to study, to work. Those who really need that, they receive aid in money from country. They have freedom to move around the EU, all countries. Tickets are even free. So that's stuff. So it's very different from refugees, and it's a good thing that happened. Now the news that Poland is already full of people. That's it becomes harder to receive more and more people. It's like just yesterday I saw data from I think a week ago, maybe more, that Poland received around 2.5 million people
that are planning on staying there as opposed to transitioning to
no info about that.
Okay.
They just entered Poland, and all the other countries around Ukraine are Romania, Slovakia, somebody else. They received
Moldova, is Moldova
Moldova, yeah, they receive our people as well. They like up to 1 million, it's like less. They in total received around 1.5 million people. Yeah, so, but some of them move further in Europe. Those who have relatives there or no language or something like that. There are less people now fleeing the country. Maybe it's because those people who wanted and could already moved, and now people who finally can from surrounding cities or from cities that they just couldn't go. Now when they can, they sometimes also flee country. But like our main way of moving people from those cities is railway, yeah. And our Укрзалізниці is government organization.
train network.
Yeah, train network. We have only that, only current one, no privates. They move these people for free, fill every car, train, as much people they can, and they have a policy that's in the end of the day, the train station should be empty. So they use as many trains as they need, move all the people. That's like humanitarian, like civil dynamics. So less, but still significant amount. Yeah, and the system kind of organizes, optimized. So my friend works as a volunteer in Lviv railway station, Danya. He said
he
that
works there, or he volunteers there?
volunteers. Yeah. So, but they have a special system when they come, when they have day off, so on, and they now letting some volunteers go. Just they need less people. They a bit minimize area because it's not needed anymore. So I think that's the reason for that is that it's less people. Yeah, and about military.
Yeah, about the military procurement stuff.
It's like first 2 weeks were hard, but last week forces basically stay where they are. Both Russians don't have enough force to continue attack, so they try to take a defending position
And regroup.
and regroup. But we see them from satellites, drones. We have artillery, Bayraktars, all that kind of nice stuff. And with our strategy of defense, we have dynamic forces that come, hit where they're most vulnerable, and go away. So that's like the result of that is they have no food, no fuel, nowhere to go.
Yeah, and from what I've been hearing from some like the occupied cities, though, like they have been like Russian soldiers have been like actively stealing like supplies and from like humanitarian aid, one for their troops, but also two for like part of that narrative of like, oh, Russians are here to save you for their own media. My wife was telling me about her hometown. They were stealing humanitarian aid from humanitarian aid groups that are coming in, put it in their own humanitarian aid vans, and then we're trying to distribute it and saying like, we brought this for you.
Well, I'm not surprised.
So, in general, nothing new. We
Yeah,
saw
nothing
this
new.
in 2014, 15, all last 8 years. So, in this situation, nothing changed.
Yeah, nothing changed. It's like I didn't hear those news, but I'm totally not surprised. And they steal those humanitarian vehicles for themselves. They still like some freezing temperatures hit them. Especially it's like northern Ukraine, they were freezing. They need something warm. Well, we give them something warm, but not that they want.
So like, especially like with there's a lot of humanitarian aid that needs to go to a lot of places, but particularly because like the Russian forces right now are very much not following any like rules in regards to like rules of war. Like you're not supposed to attack civilian convoys. You're not supposed to attack like you're supposed to clearly label military vehicles, military targets, and they've been attacking specifically civilian targets.
So
in many cases
there are several laws that regulate wars. Geneva Convention, some New York something clause, so on. They basically say that that if you are like you should be properly identified as soldier of one side, you cannot change clothes, change IDs, or so on. Russia changed clothes. They took clothes from our killed soldiers,
ambulances, police cars,
so on. So they impersonate our soldiers, come closer, and then hit. So it's against all. They used some kind of bombs, like cassette bombs and vacuum bombs that are forbidden because they do too much damage.
These are essentially like the Moab, right? Mother of all bombs. It's the one I think the U.S. dropped in Syria.
Sorry, which?
Mother of all bombs. It's
it's vacuum bomb. Yeah, so
it's just short of using a nuclear weapon.
They were created instead of nuclear weapon. So it's like not strictly forbidden. They say that it should not be used when less damage can be dealt to achieve same
Yeah.
result. Yeah, so, but they just threw that bomb in city,
But
in
especially
city center.
but especially because a lot of like what they're targeting is like civilian infrastructure. So like, they've now taken two nuclear plants, one that's been decommissioned,
Mhm.
and then the one in Zaporizhia, and they've also been like targeting a lot of telecommunications
Yeah.
and information lines. What are like how have priorities kind of shifted in terms of like how we're supposed to offer support to like those cities that are kind of occupied?
So the two, the one main problem is Mariupol.
Mhm.
It is surrounded for second or third week,
Mhm.
and they just cannot take the city, so they just bomb everything.
Mhm.
Like there are literally no buildings left intact.
That's where that
So according to latest information, something around 90% of all buildings in Mariupol are destroyed completely.
It's like I think it would be better to like Google the size of the city before war. Like it's not that small.
It's something close to 300,000 people.
and Mariupol. So like
3 to 5,000.
Mariupol, the objective.
446,000. It's like almost
square
half a mil.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So what's like random U.S. city you can name with
Chicago.
Chicago as Google? That I think it's bigger, but okay, Chicago is 2.7 mil. So it's like in Italy, it's like most cities of Europe are smaller.
That have been just,
Yeah.
and it's just
It's
been
Barcelona,
completely destroyed.
maybe. Okay, it's nice time to Google information.
But so essentially, the objective of them trying to take Mariupol is so that they have a secure foothold to try to take Kyiv and
It is just
because it's close. It's also close to the Donbass region.
yeah, it should connect Donbass region and Crimea Peninsula on like not with sea. It's like that's a small kind of bridge, and emotionally they didn't take that in 2014. They still want that, but they cannot take that, so they decided to kill every civilian and bomb everything just to destroy the city. Like just like no city, like good old fashioned bombing of Japan. It's like just nothing left. But still, it's like it's hard to tell whether that's true, but I think that's true that it deals less damage than expected to our defenders of Mariupol. So our soldiers know how to work there. Yeah, but still, it's very hard. It is a huge humanitarian crisis. Our diplomats try to negotiate humanitarian
Green
ways.
corridors.
Yeah, green corridors, and I think only once they worked during 3 weeks.
The one green corridor that went from Mariupol to Berdyansk wasn't even. I don't think it was mentioned during the part of the peace talks. So it was like just a kind of out of the blue green corridor.
So they have they some kind of negotiate. According to protocol, they cannot tell the results or what exactly happened during those negotiations, like official between countries. They can only comment. It's like I like that, just like that. And they tried to
But
negotiate.
Russia never keep his promises about green corridors. Never.
Yeah. So
and they always blame it on like Ukrainian radicals for firing at
so
them.
they blame everything on Ukrainian radicals. So-called.
Particularly, like I know one that I've seen people from the West like comment about like why they can't necessarily in good conscience support Ukraine is because of like the Azov Battalion, which I also see like frequently like this is the Republican or Republicans are also support Russia in a lot of places. But
okay.
Disclaimer: not all Republicans, but that's also a really shitty thing that I have to say. But like a lot of Russians like will scapegoat saying like, oh yeah, this Azov battalion, these are the neo-Nazis, these are the guys who are doing a lot of the genocide and are that are violating a lot of the Green Corridors and agreements.
So originally, Azov Battalion was Dobrovolchi. It's like people who just
They were
decided
volunteers.
to volunteer
Yeah.
to protect country in 2014.
Mhm.
Basically, we have several of these battalions. They just people that took firearms, went to Donbass and started defending our country. Then they formed into a battalion, and then they were joined into the Ukrainian army. Azov battalion is indeed right wing, of course. It's like, but no Nazis thing.
Yeah,
they're just determined to protect our country.
The miscommunication that a lot of people in the West have with it is the idea of
It is
nationalism.
not miscommunication. It was Russian propaganda.
Yeah, that too.
They just addressed this regiment to tell that it's Nazi. Basically, they put a lot of effort both inside the country and around the world to say that. And unfortunately, some people bite on that. So it's like they still right wing. They determined to protect their country. They want to kill Russians, as now everyone in Ukraine wants, and they always wanted. But they just professionals. They gained a lot of experience during the last 8 years. Even started from volunteering. So it's like they're one of our like maybe not most combat ready and experienced battalions, but
they're one of the most notorious at this point.
Yeah. So and now part of that is surrounding Mariupol, and they defend that city for this amount of time. And the problem is that, according to Russian propaganda, there are Nazis that use people to defend themselves, like civilian people. That's why they just bomb hospital and then say there were Nazis there, like Azov Nazis.
Or that the Nazis did it.
That
the Nazis bombed it.
Yeah, so then they bomb maternity house, like full of pregnant people, children, doctors, and all that stuff. And they say Azov was there. They used that place to protect themselves with civilians, so we just bombed that. And every single building, they just bomb whatever they see, whatever they decide, with some very strange logic that they should be killed for, but they just blame that. That's all.
But you know, in real, a lot of members of Azov are locals who lives there in Mariupol and surround regions for 5, maybe 7 generations. So it's not the guys from the west of Ukraine who came to Mariupol to kill locals because they speak Russian.
Or American agents that are infiltrating.
The Americans did not train them.
Yeah, more than a half of volunteers formation who became regular army formation are locals from Donetsk and Lugansk regions. So, and I know many people from Donetsk, Lugansk who joined to this formation, and they became
regular military.
Regular military. And I don't know why this Russian propaganda about Ukrainian Nazis are working, because
it's because Russia couldn't invent new villains.
Yeah, because I am from Donetsk. My family lives there for 7 generations. I am ethnical Russian, and my native language is Russian. And I never have any problems with this in Kiev, in Lviv, in Ivano-Frankivsk. So from inside of Ukraine, all this propaganda looks like a joke. But for some reason it works in Europe, in the United States.
Well, it's because, like, you know, a lot of people in the West, one can't, like the language barrier is pretty big
Yeah, so it's just they have two sources, like Ukrainian that were actually not that loud
Mhm.
for previous years, and now people fix that. Just those who cannot serve military or do anything else, they take phones and just translate information and spread that
Mhm.
further in countries. And we have something to compare. Like we live here, we know information from our experience, from our news, and from Russian news.
Mhm.
So we see that it's just bullshit. It's like, even now in Lviv, it's like it is considered most pro-Ukrainian city with all those Benderovцы
Oh,
and all that stuff. Even now, hear Russian language on a regular basis from people on the street,
Mhm.
and they're alive. Nobody hits them. Nobody like takes them, incarcerate, and do some interesting things. They just live here,
Mhm.
like usually, and it's not a problem.
Mhm.
Of course, we sometimes joke about that it's better not to not to speak Russian in Lviv, but it's just jokes.
Mhm.
To be honest, we always joking about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, so but it's just totally normal life. I read interviews of Russian people with Russian passport that have like Russian speaking Russian and Ukrainian speaking Russian sound different. So that Russian person who speaks Russian the Russian way
Mhm.
in Lviv had no problems.
Hmm.
And it's like how it should be in a country with freedom and all that democracies. No, that's how it's not Russia, where if
Yeah.
you speak Ukrainian, you will be incarcerated, especially now.
Or deported.
Like they already find and catch Ukrainians in Russia
Mhm.
just because they're Ukrainians.
We're already it's pretty late here. We also technically have a there's still a curfew and like a lights out thing. So I don't want to go much longer because we're already really cutting it super close. Um, Given that how things have kind of progressed, how would you say that like the goals right now for Ukrainians have kind of changed? So um, now that we've seen like the peace talks, we've kind of heard like some of the negotiations. Right now, like Zelensky's mentioned, like we understand we're probably not going to be joining NATO, but we plan on still joining the EU.
Mhm.
What do you guys think about that? And then also in terms of beyond just getting Russians the fuck out of Ukraine, is getting them out of is retaking the Donbass back on the table, is retaking Crimea, is that all back on the table in your guys' opinions?
Well, there
I'll go
are.
with Stas first.
Sure, okay.
I don't think that our government will revert politics and decision to join European Union and NATO.
Mhm.
I think maybe this information about that we're thinking about revert our course
Mhm.
is just like
Negotiation
mind
tactics.
games to get some reaction from Russia, reaction from another countries, to manage how to how to correct and make more efficient our international communication.
Mhm.
And I think that everything that our government proclaiming in public
Yeah,
relations
announcements or whatever.
are made to gain some advantages in time, to gain some
Just like some like political leverage or
yeah,
and more
yeah,
for the sake of
yeah.
morale.
But if you look not to the declaration, but to the situation in the battlefield,
Mhm.
You will see that there is absolutely no reason to
Capitulate.
to lose some political position
Mhm.
or to lose some points in our position about our territory, about our political course, because Russia supposed to take Kiev
Very
and the huge part of Ukraine in 3 days, but now in 3 weeks they they didn't get absolutely nothing in general.
Mhm.
So yeah, there is some places with really hard situation. They take some territories, but
They at this point don't seem to have
yeah,
momentum.
but they didn't achieve any strategical goals.
Jenny?
Okay, I'm just go some more info. First about Mariupol.
Mhm.
So it's like more or less the same population as Minneapolis, as Colorado Springs, a bit smaller than Baltimore and Denver.
Mhm.
So it's like big enough city. And about like all those European Union NATO stuff. First of all, I see no way that we don't join European Union.
Mhm.
So we had one president that decided that we should not do that. He's in Rostov from 2014. So it's like Viktor Yanukovych, and after people
Right now
Maidan,
he's in Belarus right now, like waiting to come back.
I think he's like a
Nobody
puppet.
knows.
I think he's like a puppet that like Putin brings with him, like in a carriage or something like that. He has no political weight whatsoever. So he once told that we should not join European Union and some more bad stuff. People went on the streets. Then it was named Maidan.
Maidan Revolution.
Yeah, and after Yanukovych fled the country, Russia invaded Crimea and then Donbass. So I see no way that any president can now say that we should not join European Union and he stays alive.
Mhm.
And we already European Union is
Already considering the
already considering, and they made the process of that simpler.
Yeah.
Because of what we have now.
Mhm.
About NATO, I indeed noticed changing narrative too, that NATO won't take us, so we should think about something else.
Mhm.
But things we should consider. Number one, NATO is an organization that is paid by citizens of countries that NATO protects,
Mhm.
from taxes, all that stuff, that should protect those countries,
Mhm.
and joining any war is not protecting those
Mhm.
countries and the lives of citizens. And now they're just afraid of Russia.
Mhm.
Not in the way that Russia can invade all the Europe. Ukrainian army proves that they cannot.
Mhm.
They cannot even like take our big cities. Just fun facts. In military theory, you need to have a battalion of troops to invade, to conquer one.
And to hold like the
No. It's like quartal. It's like very small part of city.
Mhm.
It's like, like in US we have those squares in New York City.
Yeah.
So it's
the
like
different bureaus or whatever.
It's like four streets in this part of the city. So it takes a battalion to join a couple of that.
Mhm.
So it's and Russia decided to use around 200,000 people
Mhm.
to invade Ukraine. So I tried to Google how much battalion is. It's like 500-600, maybe 1,500 people, like soldiers. So 200,000 people, if they all decided like to use all the troops to invade Kiev, they wouldn't do that.
Mhm.
So just not enough people. And it's more than half of battle-ready troops in Russia.
Mhm.
Far more than half. I don't remember the exact number. So if they can invade Ukraine, they cannot invade Europe.
Mhm.
It's quite logical. But it's still a nuclear country. They possess nuclear weapons, and just joining war for NATO is like what? They do support Ukraine in a great way, less than we would love to, of course. Still, not all information about those that help is public.
Mhm.
But the main purpose of NATO is protect
Their member countries.
their countries. There are some thoughts that after Russia invades Ukraine, they will try to go further.
Mhm. But that would make
That's why they need to help Ukraine not to let that happen.
Mhm.
And it is true, and they help. Yeah, but like joining like in military way is not that.
Mhm.
And joining and letting the country join during war NATO is I don't think that it will ever happen.
Mhm.
So it may happen after the war.
But during the war, it just doesn't seem
But
plausible.
It's like even not plausible and against the laws of NATO.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens after? I have no opinion because, well, we should join NATO.
Mhm.
Of course, there are jokes during this war that it's
NATO's
not
got them.
Ukraine who should join NATO, but NATO should join Ukraine because we just like kicked out world's second army.
Mhm.
But it's just jokes.
I hear another interpretation of this joke that Ukraine refused NATO request to join of Kiev Territorial Defense Force
Yeah.
because they are not enough qualified.
So, military alliance are good. It's like originally NATO was created to defend Europe against Soviet Union,
Mhm.
and the main thing in this is that attack of one country of NATO equals
Attack on all.
attack on all the countries automatically,
Mhm.
and they join forces. Before, like 2014 and 2022, NATO in some kind didn't have a reason to exist
Mhm.
because no Soviet Union, just Russia. They tried to do something in Syria, Afghanistan, and so on.
Mhm.
But now they invaded a country that is the largest in Europe, if not taking Russia, because it's like Europe and Asia.
Mhm.
So we're more larger than France, than Germany, than all of that. So it's like literally the geographical center of Europe is in Ukraine.
Mhm.
Like just if you take rule measure, it will be in Ukraine. So that's why Poland's reaction of refugees differs very much with Syria refugees and with ours. They
Mhm.
refused taking those refugees.
Mhm.
Partly it was against the law of European Union, but they did that.
Mhm.
And they are welcome to take our people to protect. Mostly, one of the reasons is historically Poland know that after Ukraine goes Poland.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, going back to NATO, what happens after war? I have no opinion because we'll see.
Mhm.
Yeah, but Ukraine will for sure be more ready and militarized even more
Mhm.
after war. So in 2014, we could not give a proper response to Russian forces. We tried, we succeeded in that. We took back a lot of cities. We protected Donetsk airport for almost a year.
Mhm.
We gave that up just because it was like destroyed completely.
Mhm.
And there were good enough forces.
That airport that was the subject of like Kiborge. The
Yeah. Exactly.
People. So people who protect are called cyborgs.
Yeah, for how long they fought with the.
Yeah, and there were just people with no like tanks. No, there were a couple, but nothing compared to what forces that Russia threw at that.
Mhm.
So even if not prepared army, and during these 8 years, we
Have built,
now
like,
have
rebuilt the
a
army.
very good army with a lot of combat experience from the same region. So it's not American people who trained Ukrainian army. We did that ourselves by killing Russians. Yeah. So what happens next is we'll be even more militarizing with more combat experience, and during NATO we'll see.
Mhm.
But about giving up Donetsk and Crimea.
Mhm.
There is the thing that because of in 2014 we could not give proper response, and to some politics that like were not sometimes not very good at their jobs, we had agreements limiting the amount of force which can use
Mhm.
in that part of war.
Yeah.
So no big artillery guns, no like maybe aviation, so on.
Mhm.
After 5 o'clock in the morning, 24th February, we can use everything.
Mhm.
And we have a lot of guns, both ours and those given from US and EU. And now we can use that, and we use. So for now, it's like more than 15,000 Russian troops are reported dead, with more than 50,000 injured.
Mhm.
It is estimated for injuries, but it's like usually it's something like that.
Mhm.
So it's more than a quarter, maybe a third of forces planned for Ukrainian invasion are dead or injured, so they cannot proceed.
Yeah.
And usually, losing 10% of your people means
Cripples your operations.
yeah. So
Actually, 3% is means that it was disaster.
Critical
Yeah.
failure.
Yeah.
yeah. So Russia lost more people in Ukraine than
Both Chechen wars.
both Chechen wars and almost as much as Afghan wars.
Mhm.
It's like a couple more days and they lose more people in Ukraine than in all wars before combined.
Mm.
So it is a disaster. And if you lose a quarter from the whole army, the plant, it means that like you have 1,500 people in your regiment,
Mhm.
and now you don't have you left with the 1,000, for example.
Mhm.
It's like losing third.
Yeah.
Can this regiment do something after that? They just don't have enough force.
Mhm.
And that's around all the perimeter of Ukraine.
Mhm.
There are still a lot of forces, and there is still a lot of work to do. For sure, it's war.
Mhm.
It will be, it is, and it will be brutal. But they lose people, they lose supplies, they don't have what to eat,
They're cut off from, like, the-
fuel, and so on.
from
We
international.
cut their supply lines. It's our strategy. It's like active defense. It's
Mhm.
called. After some time, they'll just be inoperable, and we'll like go back. About giving back Donbass and Crimea, I don't think people will agree
Mhm.
after what happened. As the President Zelensky told that
When
it will
you say
be.
give back, do you mean like
It's like
return them to Ukraine?
no, Russian diplomats say that we will stop the war if you give
Recognize
recognize Crimea Peninsula as part of Russia and Donetsk
Donbass
and
as,
Lugansk
independent.
People's Republic.
Mhm.
There were opinions before that that the occupied Donbass region is so destroyed that we kind of don't need that back.
Mhm. And
Because
Russia
it would
also
be-
doesn't want it, really.
It doesn't want that as well because it would cost too much to recover.
Mhm.
Because at that time, with no official war, basically it's still not official war, but we have all the military laws working right now.
Mhm.
Actually, nobody now declares wars before
Yeah.
doing war.
Now it's all special operations.
Yeah. So before this, what happens now, we didn't know how to take money back, take money for reconstructing all this.
Mhm.
Now it's all obvious because Russia will pay in any means possible.
Mhm.
It's like we'll remember what happened with Germany after World War One and Two.
Mhm.
How they for how much time they paid with all means, with money, with resources, with their soldiers captured, rebuilding our cities and so on. And now it's all clear. And after like having those sacrifices with war, I don't think people will agree that like we sacrificed and now we give them our territories as they wanted when they lose. But it's still emotional thing.
Yeah.
President Zelensky told that at the response to those Russian requirements that it will be decided on every major decision of these diplomatic things will be put on a referendum for Ukrainian people. Emotionally, I think that we won't agree. And I will personally vote for fighting back. And now that we can.
What was the question?
EU, NATO, joining reaction.
Yeah, so you already
everything.
responded about like EU, NATO. What about so do you think Ukraine will try to take back the Donbass and Crimea?
I think that we would like to take back Crimea and Donetsk and Lugansk region back to Ukraine, but it depends on how situation will develop in future. So I can't see any possibilities for this for now. But I think it's possible, and I'd like it happens. About NATO, I think it's too early to talk about our joining to NATO. But in any case, I hope that after this war, we will build in Ukraine some army system like in Switzerland, Швейцария, like in Switzerland or in Israel. Where all population of our country will be in reserve, and if in a situation that we need to defend the country and
and mobilize.
Yeah, and mobilize more people to army. We don't face such problems like we face now with supplies, with training, with
just overall being better,
else. Yeah.
more prepared.
Yeah, because I don't think that even if we stop Russia now and take back our occupied regions, I don't think that Russia will stop. Russia never stop
Like imperial
geopolitical ambitions, and we can hit them very hard, but in a few years they build a new army, they will do something with economic, and they will start building forces like Soviet Union do.
Yeah, so basically Ukraine had 30 years of independence. We had
and 300 years of fight for this independence.
I think even more. It's like when Russia started in 14 something year, they wanted Ukraine, basically, and for a lot of time they invaded Ukraine, along with Poland actually. and after it was the one before the Soviet Union. So okay now. And even after World War II, there were 10 years of us fighting for our freedom in like Lviv region in Галичина. It's the most western part of Ukraine. And we had only 30 years of the independence with only 2, maybe 3 presidents out of 7 that were pro-Ukrainian. So first president, second president of Ukraine were pro-Russian. They gave up a lot of military planes, boats, rockets, nuclear weapons,
Nuclear arsenal.
those stuff. So it was like demilitarizing of Ukraine. And now there are possible. They put Ukraine in a loan for gas from Russia, and then gave back not with money but with military planes and rockets that are probably used right now against us. So they're still operational. They fixed that, and so now we finally fight back. We believe that we win, but the question is for how much time we'll have peace. It most probably will happen again.
Even if Putin is removed, you think it'll continue?
With such huge countries, there are 2 ways of ruling. Way number 1 is what they have in US.
Oh, okay.
So some regions that have some form of independence, like not totally, but they have their own laws, their own policies, and so on. And with some part of laws, like federal laws, that for all country, and with the united geopolitical policy, economics, and so on. And other way that they have in Russia is empire. So one centralized control of all regions and suppressing those who want other way. So after the leaders are dead, it never finished with them surviving. There will be some time of like some kind of living, and then they'll find another man will rise.
Germany did all right with like getting rid of Hitler, and now
Germany is not that big country.
I guess.
Yeah. So and after World War One, other countries learned their lesson and did not suppress Germany that much. Because one of the main reasons why we had Hitler is Germany had too much to pay, and they were just put down with no way out. So and then, as one man on Oversimplified says, a man with silly mustache came out and told I can fix that. So after World War II, those agreements were very different. And now we have Germany still pro-Russia.
Still pro-Russian gas. Yeah.
It's like when Europe, especially Poland and Balkan countries, were giving us an wall, and Britain were giving us walls, guns, and so on. Germany like, hey, take 5,000 helmets. It's like what, 2 regiments with an army of 500,000 people, 5,000 helmets.
Just for comparison, 5,000 of soldiers, there is 2 brigades. In Lviv, we have 1 territorial defense brigade, and the second one is forming just now. So 2,000 of helmets. This is only for territorial defense forces of 1 Ukrainian city.
Yeah, and Lviv is like 700,000 people. So it's like giving us something or not is what countries decide, and we can only ask. But well,
there's always a message behind what they decide to give. Okay. We've definitely gone way over when the lights.
We
are on.
can finish with the joke that we have that I mean our soldiers, should go further in Russia until they see good roads. When they see asphalt on roads,
Oh.
it's China.
Alright, anything that you guys can you guys can plug. So I worked on a website, UkraineWarAid.com. It's a resource site for anybody who's looking for a place to donate, or for people in Ukraine trying to find places to evacuate to, or if you're staying in Ukraine, like places you can help out or whatever. Anything you guys are working on that you can plug, like a website or any projects?
We have a website of our initiative
Oh,
and also a page on Facebook with our reports and
What are they
information about how people can donate to our needs.
what are they called?
It's called Group 35.
Group 35. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that the website also?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, and it's nice thing to learn about Switzerland's army and Israel army, because they are in situation when they're much smaller, but Israel needs to defend their independence every time, like for all their history, and they have a special military system that is nice to know. And Switzerland, which
They're always for
was
hire.
neutral always, but they have a very impressive defense system. Yeah, so just something to learn.
But you know, Switzerland was a neutral, but they adjoined to anti-Russian sanctions
Yeah.
maybe a week ago.
Yeah, after 115 years of
So
neutrality.
even for Switzerland, it's enough.
Yeah, and they have banks in Switzerland which hold Russian funds, and they sanctioned that. Yeah.
Don't be neutral. Support Ukraine.
Yeah.
Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава!
Thanks, guys. What did you guys eat today?
What you made?
My wife made stir-fried rice.
Fine. Okay, I need to thank her then.
Stas, what did you eat?
I don't remember what I have eaten for dinner, but I remember that we.
Didn't you just eat?
No, I said for dinner. Dinner.
In
dinner?
different countries, it can be either obid or вечеря.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you eat for lunch?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I think that's a good enough test.